Hello children, let me welcome you to the virtual training center of the Brihan Mumbai Mahanagar Palika. My name is Shraddha teacher. Children, we are in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic, isn't it? Because of that, we are not able to go to school, but that doesn't mean that we are going to stop learning. We are going to meet here regularly through the virtual training center to learn many lessons in EVS. So come on, let's go to a lesson in EVS. So children, let us continue with the lesson that we were doing in standard 4th, EVS 2. So come on, think back and recollect about which was the lesson that we are talking about. We are talking about lesson number 14. The fort is captured, but the lion is dead. Alright, and today we are going to do part 2 of this video. So we will complete this particular lesson in today's video. But before we go to part 2, let us quickly revise what we did last time, children. So remember, we talked about what happened in the first part of the lesson. Now we will start with the second part, over the precipice and into the fort. But before going over the precipice and before entering the fort, let us see what all difficulties, what all planning Tanaji and his men had to do in order to win back the fort of Kondana. Alright, so come on. We know about Tanaji Balusire till now. We know that he was Shivaji's comrade and he came from a village called Umrathe near Mahad in Konkan. And we also saw how he was always ready to put his heart and his soul into any work which was given to him by Shivaji Maharaj. He was also very well built, he was clever, he was strong, okay, and most of all, his devotion towards Shivaji Maharaj was very, very passionate. So we learnt about the character of Tanaji Malusare in the previous lesson. We also talked about how Shivaji had to hand over the fort of Kondana to Jai Singh, okay, and it was part of the agreement which was made. Okay, the Treaty of Purandar, according to that 24 or 23 forts had to be given to the Mughal emperor, and out of which Kondana was also one of the forts, and this was constantly troubling Shivaji and Jijabai Sahib. Okay, they were always anxious that one of their most strong fort or one of their strongest fort was still in enemy hands, and Jijabai Sahib used to continuously tell Shivaji Maharaj that he should try to win back this fort from the Mughals. But then was it an easy task? It wasn't. It was not. Why? Because the fort was very, very strong. Okay, and the stronger a fort is, the more difficult it is to capture it. Alright, but then the plans were underway. They were not resting at all. Their minds were constantly working on the idea of how to win Kondana back. So it was like a thorn in their side. What was like a thorn in their side? Handing over Kondana to the Mughal emperor. It was pricking them all the time. Okay, it was at this time that Tanaji, who was accompanied by Shelar Mama, went to Shivaji Maharaj and Ma Sahib to invite Shivaji Maharaj and Ma Sahib for Raiba's wedding. Now, who was Raiba? Raiba was Tanaji's son, and he was supposed to get married, and Tanaji was very, very happy, and that is why he wanted Shivaji Maharaj also to come and bless Raiba for his wedding, and that is why he, along with his uncle, that is Shelar Mama, they went in order to invite Shivaji for the wedding. But what happened there? When they reached there, they realized that Shivaji Maharaj had something else on his mind. Okay, and what was that something else? Shivaji Maharaj clearly told Tanaji that I will not be attending the marriage. I will not be able to attend the marriage. Why? Because I have decided to lead a campaign for the recapture of Kondana. As soon as Tanaji heard this, he got very, very upset and he questioned Shivaji Maharaj. He asked him, Maharaj, do you propose to undertake this difficult and dangerous campaign while Tanaji is still alive? Then what is the use of a person like me? He further added that I shall first perform the marriage of Kondana by capturing it. Raiba's wedding can wait. And he also requested Shivaji that Shivaji should allow him to lead the campaign and also bless him for its success. Okay, so this is what happened. He had gone to invite Shivaji Maharaj for Raiba's wedding, but he came back with the you can say responsibility of leading a campaign in order to win back the Kondana fort. And he also had a particular plan in place. So he did not work in a haphazard manner. He had a particular plan also in place. Okay, so with these words and with a particular plan, Tanaji took charge of the campaign and he left for Kondana. And here you will see that he explained his plan to his brother. What did he say? He said, you take a detachment of 500 troops and try to reach the Kalyan gate or the Kalyan Darwaza. And Tanaji himself, what did he plan to do? He said that with another 300, I shall scale this precipice. Now, what is the meaning of a precipice? A precipice is a steep hill, and get inside the fort. As soon as we are there, we shall throw open the doors of the Kalyan gate. Then you step in and join us. Together, we shall destroy the Mughal troops defending the fort. So this was the plan which was hatched by Tanaji. Now let us see how they moved on. So it was dark night, okay, and Tanaji and his men were gathered at the foot of the precipice. Now you can see the precipice here. So I told you what is a precipice. A precipice is a kind of a steep hill, okay. It is a very hill which is very straight. So it is very difficult to climb it. See, if there is a slope, you can climb it easily. But if it is at a very steep angle, it is difficult to climb it. So it was a dark night and Tanaji and his men were gathered at the foot of the precipice. Okay. And what did they do? 5 or 6 of Tanaji's party started to scale the precipice. It was very high and steep, but somehow they managed to get a foothold in the rock, and they pulled themselves up by pushing their fingers into rock crevices and began the difficult and dangerous climb. So now they started to climb. Now see, it is so difficult. Can you see how they are climbing? There is a rope which they have used for supporting themselves. At the same time, they are climbing on a very steep kind of a rock. Okay, there is no place to hold, but somehow they are pushing their fingers into the gaps in the rocks and they are pulling themselves up and they are trying to climb now. So 5 or 6 members, they started the climb. Okay, then you will see this is how they were climbing. All right, it was very, very difficult. Also, if you would fall from there, you would fall to your death. Okay, now they continued, and slowly but surely they reached the top. Now this is the actual place where they climbed. All right, when Tanaji climbed, this is the actual place where they climbed the fort. You can see how steep it is, and you can also see that if you fall from there, you fall to your death. All right, so slowly they reached the top like this. And what did they do? After they reached the top, they climbed and climbed, and when they were on top, they tied a thick rope to a strong tree and let it down the precipice. The others took hold of the rope and they climbed up to the top like monkeys. So now you can see how they are climbing using the rope or using the support which they have thrown down. All right, so this is how they entered. Say they went over the precipice and they entered the fort. So this is what Tanaji's plan was, to climb and to enter the fort. And once they would enter the fort, what would they do? They would open the Kalyan gate, and there was Suryaji waiting with his men to enter the fort and to attack the Mughal guards. Alright, so this is what Tanaji's plan was, and somehow he managed to become successful in it as well. Now Tanaji's valor, let us talk about. Now we saw Tanaji's plan, we saw how he was very smart, we saw how he was very brave, and how he was very, you can say, resourceful also. Alright, now let us talk about his valor. Now by the time Tanaji climbed the precipice and he was entering the fort, Suryaji had reached the Kalyan gate and he waited there for the gates to open. So can you see this? See, this is where Tanaji was climbing from, and here is the Kalyan gate. So there is Tanaji in that near the orange arrow, and you have Suryaji standing near the yellow arrow. Okay, so they entered the fort, you can say, and now Suryaji was waiting, ready, that as soon as the gate is thrown open, I will enter it and I will support my brother. But what do you think must have happened? So see, you can see here Suryaji and his men waiting outside the Kalyan gate. Alright, but now they entered the fort. Do you think the soldiers would have allowed, the Mughal soldiers will allow Tanaji and his men to easily go and open the gate? No. So what happened? The battle on the fort had started. So as soon as these men entered, the Mughal soldiers, they started fighting with the Maratha soldiers, stopping them from going to the Kalyan gate and opening it. Now Uday Bhan, he heard of the attack and the battle drum was sounded. Uday Bhan's garrison attacked Tanaji's men. A grim battle started between the two forces in the light of dancing torches. Now that time there was no electricity, okay, and it was already getting dark. But then now these people had already entered, the Maratha soldiers had entered, so they could not wait for the morning in order to defend. So the fighting started and the battle was very grim. Grim means it was a very serious, deadly battle between the two forces, that is the Maratha forces and the Mughal forces. Okay, and then you will see that Uday Bhan himself entered the fight. Now what did the Mavlas do? The Mavlas threw open the Kalyan gate, and you will see that Tanaji was fighting like a brave lion. Uday Bhan attacked him. Both were very brave and the battle between them was fierce. So now you have Uday Bhan and Tanaji Malusare face to face. Now Uday Bhan is supposed to be the keeper of the fort. He's supposed to be in charge of the fort. So he is also doing his duty. Okay, he is also trying to protect the fort, as well as now Tanaji wants to win back the fort. It has been taken over by the Mughals, so he also is doing his duty. So both of them fought very bravely. Alright, but unfortunately what happened was Tanaji's shield was broken. There was a very you can say tough fight going on, and somewhere what happened was Uday Bhan's sword fell on Tanaji's shield, and here you can see the shield which Tanaji was carrying in order to protect himself broke into two pieces. Alright, and then the fighting continued. Did Tanaji stop fighting? What did he do? He tied his upper garment round his defending hand to parry Uday Bhan's blows. That is, to stop, to block Uday Bhan's blows. What did he do? He removed his turban or his feta and he tied it around his hand, and he continued to fight. He did not give up. He did not back out. He did not say, oh, now my shield is broken, now what should I do? He continued to fight. Okay, and finally what happened? In the end, both were mortally wounded and they fell fighting. Both of them were fighting, both of them were wounded because both of them were equally brave. None was able to or ready to back out, and they both fell fighting. Now what happened is, now the fort is almost in the Maratha control, but Tanaji has fallen. Alright, now let us see how the fort is captured but the lion is dead. Now with the death of Tanaji, the Mavlas found themselves without a leader and they began to retreat Retreat means they turned back and they started running away. Now you can see the faces of the Mavlas, they're looking very worried now. Why? Because the leader has fallen dead. Okay, by then what happened is Suryaji and his men had arrived on the scene of the battle. Suryaji was deeply grieved to know that his brother was dead. But he had no time for grief. Could Suryaji sit and cry that my brother is gone? Otherwise he himself will get attacked, isn't it? By then Suryaji and his men had arrived on the scene of the battle, and Suryaji was grieved. He was very, very sad that his brother is gone. But he had no time to sit and cry for his brother. He had to continue the fight. So what did he do? He cut off the rope by which the Mavlas had climbed the fort. Can you see? He's cutting off the rope. Why? Because he did not want the Mavlas to run away from there. The gate, of course, if they tried to run away from the gate, the Mughal soldiers would kill them. So the Mavlas were trying to run away using the rope that they used to climb the fort. What did he do? He cut it. And what did he say? He stood in the path of the retreating Mavlas and said, "Don't you see that your father is lying dead here on the battlefield? Are you not ashamed to run away like a bunch of cowards?" Cowards means someone who doesn't have any guts, someone who's not brave. "Turn back and fight, for I have blocked your retreat by cutting off the rope by which you climbed up." He said, now there is no way you can run away. The only choice before you is either you jump to your death over the precipice, or you turn back and fight and destroy the enemy. So if you want to live, you have to turn back and fight and destroy the enemy. This was the ultimatum. This was a choice which was given to the soldiers by Suryaji, Tanaji's brother. He kept all his, you can say, sadness, all his grief aside, and he stood in order to protect his soldiers and to encourage them. So what did the Mavlas do? So the Mavlas returned to the fight and attacked the enemy. So they were very encouraged. They felt that no, so what if Tanaji is dead? We still have Suryaji to lead us. And a fierce battle raged. There was a very, very fierce battle which carried out between the remaining Mughals and the Mavlas. And what will you see? The Mavlas, they ultimately conquered the fort. But in the process, they had lost their brave and lion-hearted leader Tanaji. Okay, so they continued to fight and they won the fort. So they were able to unfurl their flag, the Maratha flag on the fort, claiming that we have won our fort back. But with all this joy, there was a little sorrow also. Why? Because their leader was dead. Tanaji, their leader, was dead. Okay? Now Jijamata and Shivaji, they heard the news. They were struck with grief. Shivaji was very, very sad because he was continuously losing one brave sardar after another. Okay, now he had lost Tanaji Malusare, and in the previous lesson when we talked about the Treaty of Purandar, in that lesson he had lost Murar Baji, then he had also lost Baji Prapu Deshpande. So all of these sardars, one after another, he was losing them, and he was very, very sad. He was struck with grief, and he said what? He said, "Gad ala pan Sinha gela." He said the fort was captured, but the lion was dead. So he called Tanaji a Sinha. Okay, a Sinha means a fort, a Sinha means a lion in the language of Marathi. Alright, so that is why Kondana, it became Sinhagad, in the memory of the great warrior who gave his life to recapture it. So Kondana became Sinhagad. Why? Because Tanaji was as good as a lion, as good as a Sinha. Okay, and that is how the fort came to be renamed. Then you will see that all these events, they took place in 1670. Now one thing was pending before Tanaji went to the campaign of Sinhagad or to Kondana. He had kept his son Raiba's wedding on hold. Okay, you will see that Shivaji Maharaj, he personally went to Umrate and he performed the wedding of Raiba. So just like Tanaji had said, first is the wedding of Kondana, that is the recapture of Kondana, and then the wedding of my son Raiba. So his prediction came right, and it was Shivaji Maharaj himself who went and he solemnized the wedding of Raiba. Okay, so this was lesson number 14 for you children. This is the second part, second video, where we talked about how the fort of Kondana, which was in the hands of the Mughals, was recaptured by Tanaji Malusare, a very, very brave and a very, very strong and clever Maratha Sardar. And in the bargain, he lost his life. He had to give up his life. But then Swaraj was won because of the sacrifices of many such great Maratha warriors. Okay, let us always remember that freedom or Swaraj is not won very easily. There are a lot of sacrifices which go into winning Swaraj. Alright, so children, now what will you do? Watch the entire video, and towards the end of the video I have set some tasks for you. So please complete those tasks also. So children, now you have watched the video. So after you watch the video now, you will have to complete a few simple tasks. Now you might have watched the video on your computers or your laptops or your mobile phones. Now after you watch the video, what will you do? You will please go to the description box which is given below the video. So what is the description box? See, the description box looks like this. Alright, and after you go to the description box, you will see that there are a few questions there. Now what are these questions about? These questions are about the lesson that we just learned or the video that you just watched. So what will you do? You will think back properly about the lesson and you will try and answer these questions and note down the answers in your notebook if you want. Okay? After that, we have another task waiting. You will also click on the link which you will find in the description box to fill up the Google form. So now what is the Google form, children? It is nothing but a simple form. There are a few simple questions there about the video which you just saw and also about yourself. So these are the tasks now that you will have to complete after you watch each video. So children, wasn't that a very interesting lesson? I'm sure you learned a lot of new things in this lesson. If you have liked this video, please hit the like button and also subscribe to my video so that you will get to see all the videos which I keep posting regularly.